Welcome to an information session on electrical and computer engineering technical elective courses and also the AMP or the Accelerated Master's Program. And I'm going to go through this fairly quickly, but hopefully it will give you some ideas as far as how to schedule or plan for your next year or year and a half, whatever you're in terms of coursework, and with respect to the AMP, where you fall into that process. But if you've been taking classes in ECE for a while, you hopefully, well, maybe you didn't pay that much attention, but if you look at the computer classes, they're typically in the 70s in terms of their decade of when they are labeled, 175, 274, 275. The electronics and the bio, and these aren't hard and fast, but they're sort of what we started with, and then we kind of ran out of numbers, and so who knows where everything will end up. But the electronics is usually in the 50s. Signals and systems, which are communication, signal processing, and control, those are in the 20s and 40s. And then electromagnetics classes are in the 80s. So if you're just looking at numbers, and you see a 484 or a 486, you can start thinking, oh, that must be something related to ECE 381, which is electromagnetics. With that said, I'm just going to sort of step through, and the computer classes, we actually had to expand the decades on those. Those are usually the 60s and the 70s. And how many here, probably maybe no one anymore, is in an old catalog where ECE 330A is not required? Okay. So it's required, so you can't take that one as a technical elective. But in previous, if you were in a previous catalog and you were an electrical engineering option, you could take ECE 330A as a technical elective. And that's Computational Techniques, which you guys are going to be quite familiar with since you all have to take it. The other classes in the computer-related area, and if you like those classes, these are some that you might want to try to schedule into your courses. 462, 562, and I'm listing these as 462, 562. If you're interested in the Accelerated Master's Program, you'll want to be taking some 500 level classes. They don't necessarily have to be the dual numbered ones. They can be exclusive graduate level classes. And you as a student, as long as you have a 3.0 GPA, you can opt in to 500 level classes and take those for honors credit if you're in the honors program, or for graduate credit and undergraduate credit if you're in the AMP. And if you're not neither of those, you can still take them as long as your GPA is 3.0. But if you liked 369, then the follow-on class is Computer Architecture. We are introducing some new classes, and one of the new ones that we are trying to install into the schedule is 471, 571, which is Fundamentals of Information Theory and Network Security. That's a lot of cryptography, or you're going to be using cryptography in a computer networking scenario to try to basically foil people's attempts to try to infiltrate maybe or mess up your network. And that's a class that's new here at the U of A starting in the spring. It may not yet be on the books, so you may not see it, but you should maybe make plans for that if you're interested. Another class that's been around is 473, 573. That's software engineering, but that one is an app class. If you want to start working in a team of engineering with a team of engineers and you really enjoy programming, this now takes programming to another level in terms of large-scale programming efforts, and that's why you're learning software engineering, but that's the app class, and you typically will build an app as your project to finish that semester. 479, 579 is artificial intelligence, and prior to this year, 479 and 462 were more traditionally offered in the fall. We've now moved them into the spring, hopefully for a little while, and we'll see how that goes. But we were trying to spread out the number of computer-related classes in the fall semester and the spring semester. And that's why we've now slid the artificial intelligence into the spring and the computer architecture and design into the spring, 462 and 479. If you're into electronics or bioengineering, then you can look at 417, which is measurement and data analysis and bioengineering. And you sort of start using your skill set in electronics to understand how do you interface with the human body to build sensors and how do you collect that data. 415, 515 is microelectronics manufacturing and environmental issues with manufacturing of microelectronics. Intro to physical electronics, that's 451A, that's dealing with how do you analyze or model these activities of electronics in plasma or in other environments. So you really start to learn a little bit more about modeling and understanding how electronics works from the physical electronics perspective. And if you have questions on these, hopefully you know how to go find at least their short course description online through the catalog. You can just go to ECE and click on that particular class number and it will pull up the course description if you want more, and then you can probably find a previous faculty member or a faculty member that's taught that in the past or is teaching it now and see if they have a syllabus if you want a little bit more detailed information about these courses. Another one in the electronics, and it's also sort of in the optics area, is 456, which is optoelectronics, and that's now getting you to understand or see this connection between optics and electronics, and it's dealing a lot with Maxwell's equations and waves and these properties that now connect electronics with optics. And how do you now, again, model that and build devices in that area of optics and electronics. In the 80s, we have electromagnetics and optics courses. One is our photovoltaic and solar class, which is the 414A class, taught by Dr. Kostick. The two next semester that are more consistent with 381 maybe, although 381 is a prerequisite, I believe, for all three of these. There's an antenna theory class, so that's antenna theory and design, and 488 is microwave circuits 2. So to take that in the spring, you hopefully are already taking it this semester in the fall. But if you aren't, then maybe you plan for next fall taking 486 and in the spring taking 488 next spring, the following spring. That's a 2-course sequence, 486, 586. That's microwave circuits. 2 is 488. That's active devices. 486, which is microwave circuits 1, is passive devices. So you go from passive to active in that 2-course sequence. For signals and systems, which are courses in the 20s, 30s, and 40s, the spring semester is usually our digital semester. So you have digital communications is 435A. You obviously need to have 340A as a prerequisite for that class. 429, 529 is digital signal processing, and 442, 542 is digital control, and you don't need 340A, although it's listed. Maybe it's listed as 320, but you should be able to get into 442 with 320, having already finished 320 for 442. Now, if you're trying to plan your schedule, we've actually tried to distribute these courses a little bit more than what they have been in the past so that there's not as much overlap. with courses, which used to mean that maybe we had 5 technical electives, but they were all taught at the same time, so effectively you had one course that you could pick. Now we don't have quite that much overlap. We're trying to spread it out over Monday through Friday in terms of when courses will be, and I've listed not only the 400 level classes, but also 500, exclusively 500 level classes. One that I'm showing here is 523, which is a machine learning class. That's something that's going to try to come on the books for the spring semester. Some of these that you may not want to get into are the 600s, which are the PhD level classes. That's probably something you don't want to be thinking about, but those are also shown here with the technical electives and the 500 sequence of classes. But now there is overlap. Here's, for example, optoelectronics, and we have then the microwave circuits too, and we also have high performance computing, but that's a grad only class, so there's effectively sort of, well, and here's our biomedical. So on Tuesdays, Thursdays, we're still quite heavily overlapping with courses, so in those cases you may have to make a choice in what you're wanting to take. But hopefully you will be able to find, for example, if you were in the computer area, here's computer architecture, here's artificial intelligence, here's the information theory and network security class. You could take all 3 of those in the computer area and not have to worry about overlap. And if you wanted, then you could do a digital signal processing on Tuesday, Thursday, and you'll see that we've tried to not have any dual numbered classes in this block, which is your senior design class time. It's 3:30 to 6:15. So we're light on our technical electives during those blocks of time. And we obviously have some overlap, but here is the photovoltaic class overlapping with the app class. But then we've scheduled the digital control to be beyond those so that you could take the app class and digital control, or you could take the photovoltaics and the digital control if you so desire. Now, if you're planning ahead, if you wanted to know what classes you might be interested in the fall of 17, which is a year from this semester, I don't know quite what we will be doing then, but you can sort of anticipate based on what we are doing right now and what I am anticipating with respect to faculty in terms of whether they will be here or not. But in the computer area, you have computer architecture 369, which probably, if you're in the EE option, you could take that as a technical elective. If you're the computer option, that's a mandatory class. 373 is object-oriented programming. If you're an electrical, you can take that as a technical elective. If you are interested in, or if you liked 274, you could now follow on with 474A. That's computer-aided logic design. That's typically in the fall, and we have a computer networking class, 478, which helps you understand how do I build these networks of computers and have them talking with each other. That's in the computer area. In the electronics area, we're not that heavy. We have device electronics, which is okay to take if you're in the computer engineering option. And 446 is semiconductor processing. How does that work in terms of creating these devices that you're learning about in 351A, for example? Electromagnetics, if you're in the computer engineering option, then you can take 381A to satisfy a technical elective. We have electrical and optical properties of materials. I'm not sure, but that may be offered in the fall. We have the first semester of microwave engineering or microwave circuits that are passive, and that's the 486. And then we have fundamental of optics for electrical engineers. Obviously, computer engineers can take that, but that's if you're trying to broaden your understanding or connecting with more than just electrical and computer. You can jump into some optics by taking 459, 559. In the signals and systems area, we offer optical communications, which is 430, and we offer automatic control, which is 441 in the fall semesters. And I'm going to try to post this on my website, this captured explanation of technical electives and AMP, but this is the list of classes in the fall, and you can see that we, again, have tried to spread those out a little bit in terms of what times those are offered so that you have the opportunity to take more than just one or two technical electives, because we now have them spread out over more of the week in terms of schedule. Are there questions on technical electives? It's not... Yes. So the question was relative to power classes or power content, and we do have some companies that are interested in maybe helping support that. We also have a faculty member that might actually be going to offer something in the fall of 2017. So you may want to stay tuned, but hopefully we will be able to offer something in the form of a power class, at least one maybe in the next year. So hopefully we will get something in that area for next fall. Fall of 17 is the plan. But we still are in the sort of negotiating phases of that. And you maybe did see some of that in 320. Did you get three-phase power? A little bit. Maybe that shouldn't spoil you on power, but there's a lot more to power that you can work with, and that's machines. You can do transmission. You can talk about generation. And obviously we consume a lot of power, and that's a very important piece of electrical and computer engineering to have some grasp of or to be familiar with. So if you're interested in renewable, what we do have is in the spring, we do have the photovoltaic class, which is the 414. So if you're interested in renewables, this is one avenue of looking into that. It's really sort of how do you put these solar cells together? How do you maybe concentrate solar energy to make them more efficient? So that's in our 414A, but that does sort of get you in the energy area or the discipline a little bit. Other questions on tech? Yes. So the question concerned similarity, and the university tries not to have too much overlap, and so when we do introduce new courses, they try not to have too much overlap between, let's say, computer science and electrical and computer, but because those two majors, if you're not minoring or majoring in computer science, it's not that easy to jump in at the 300 or 400 level of computer science. So we do have some overlap in terms of content. Maybe we teach computer architecture, which maybe they don't teach much of, but we do have an object-oriented programming class. They probably have something similar. And so there are some classes. There's a math class that's dealing with cryptography, and now we have such a class, not quite, but we have one that will use that, and so there might be a third of the class that's dealing with cryptography, but the math class might get into more of the theory or the theoretical side of that. And so there is overlap. I'm not sure that, well, in engineering itself, we have a controls class, they have a controls class. I really don't like students to take both of those because they're too much alike. So if I catch it, I won't allow it. But if it was out of sequence in terms of if you needed to take, or if you wanted to take that and we weren't offering it over here in ECE that semester, that's a more sellable to me argument in terms of taking a class that might be similar in another area or in another department if it's out of sync. And that's how we've allowed students to take the computer science equivalent of our object-oriented programming class in the past. I don't know if I answered, but if you see something that you can as tech electives, you can take two classes that are outside ECE that are in some other engineering. Usually you want to clear those with Sydney, but physics and math at a 300 or 400 level, those can count towards your technical electives in ECE, and you can take up to two of those. So if you see something outside of ECE that really piques your interest, go ahead and ask Sydney, can I count this towards my technical elective coursework? Question? We don't have them cross-listed in the ECE program, but there are SIE or courses in SIE that, and there's probably courses in civil that are dealing with law and contracts, but there are courses in SIE that you can take that are management related, and those you can take, that would count as one of your two that you have available to take. Now, the other option, if you're interested in entrepreneurship, we now are allowing a select number of our students to take the entrepreneurship senior design in the Eller or McGuire program. And we're doing that in lieu of the engineering 498. I think we have a handful of our seniors this year doing that. So if you're interested in that, you'll want to be very alert to advertisements in January, and then that's sort of when you apply to do that. And then if you're selected, I think we'll probably go ahead and allow you to move forward in that, but your design project has to be engineering related. That's a good question. I hope it is. We'll have to see if that, because in the Honors College you need an honors thesis, and we have been able to use your senior design write-up to count for that. Now if it's in the entrepreneurial program, we'll have to make sure and get that cleared if that's the case. And it probably will happen this year, and maybe we just haven't been alerted to that fact. Yes, so I don't know that we've addressed this issue of honors thesis with the entrepreneurial write-up, but I'm hoping that we could sort of force that to work in that case as well. Other questions on technical electives? Yes. The question was, if I'm in the AMP, which we haven't yet talked about, but let me see if I can make this a little easier to, wrong direction, to see. If you are in the Accelerated Master's program, you can probably take some 600 level classes. We just don't usually worry about it. But as an undergrad, you may want to say, let me put those off until I get into my official master's once I finished my undergrad. I'm not sure that the university would allow us to, it's kind of special to allow students to take 500 level. If we now push you into the 600, it may be a tough sell. So I would see if you can get by with taking the 500 level and using those to basically count towards your undergraduate and graduate. So that's leading us into the Accelerated Master's program or option. And so if you have a 3.3 cumulative GPA, then you can start taking 500 level courses as an undergraduate that will also count towards your graduate program. But the key thing here is you have to maintain that 3.3 GPA all the way through and graduate with a 3.3 or better. If you don't, you'll graduate, but you just won't be able to use those classes towards your master's degree. But you can use up to 4 classes that will count towards your technical elective coursework as an undergrad, and you can apply those 4 to your master's degree in the graduate program. And the graduate master's program is, if it's coursework only, that's 10 classes total, and you've already taken 4 as an undergrad. That's now 6 that you need to take, and typically you can take 3 and 3 in those next 2 semesters and finish your master's now in 1 year beyond your BS degree. And we waive the requirement for the GRE. There is an application fee, but if you're interested in the AMP, what I would recommend is that you email our graduate advisor and make an appointment to talk to her, because usually everyone's situation is unique, and she can talk you through where you are relative to the 90 units. If you have 90 units, so essentially if you have senior status, that's when you can start taking these 500 level classes to count towards both your undergraduate and your graduate degree. Question? The question concerns how many graduate classes can you take in any one semester. It maybe depend on you and your personality. They are more usually work at the graduate level, and so a full load could be 3 classes, but you can take 4. I think I've seen maybe a student try to take 5. That's maybe a little over the top for graduate coursework, but 4 might be doable. But I think if you're in the AMP, the 3 and the 3, that's a pretty nice load, and that's still pretty heavy. If you think of each class being 20 hours a week of effort, that's 60 hours a week there for your coursework. And well, I was thinking of those 3 after you've already finished your BS. So that's what you really have to worry about as an undergrad, is taking 2 classes at the graduate level in your last 2 semesters. That's pretty heavy. That's pretty intense. So if you sort of step into this 90 units early, you might have 3 semesters to take these 4 classes, and you don't have to take all 4. You can take up to 4 and count those towards your master's. You could take 1 a semester, and that's still getting you closer to completing your master's. Now you have 2 of the 10 already completed if you took 1 each semester. So right now we don't have any classes offered in the summer per se at the graduate level, but we were just talking to some people today, and it might happen. But don't hold your breath on that, but we'll try to let you know or keep you informed if we do start offering classes in the summer at the graduate level or even at the undergraduate level. Other questions? Did I cover enough on the AMP? What did I miss on the AMP? So you can apply as a junior, and you have to wait until you're at 90 units. And again, you need to have that 3.3 cumulative GPA, and you have to maintain that in your undergraduate career so that at graduation, if you have a 3.3, good, you're in to the graduate program and you can count those 4 classes towards your master's. If you, for whatever reason, well, for whatever, if you end up below 3.3, you can still graduate with your bachelor's, but you won't be able to use those and you won't be able to automatically get into the graduate program. It's by credit. So the way that the university likes to categorize students typically is by the units. That's easier than them trying to say, are you a junior or are you a sophomore? You've got 100 units. What does that mean? So a lot of our students end up senior status as sophomores, but the university would probably still treat you as a senior, although we treat you as a sophomore, because those are the courses that you're taking. Other questions about technical electives or the AMP? If not, I don't want to keep you here all night. I can do other things. Other questions? No? Then I will